Nagarathar Chamber of Commerce, sail to prosper.
So, on behalf of Nagarathar Chamber of Commerce, EC team takes great pleasure in welcome you all to this online meeting.
Thank you.
It's a real challenge for everyone in the midst of COVID-19. So we all have our own challenges, our own problems. So midst of this, we need to find ways of how we can sail through. And so the EC team decided that we start making this online session a regular activity for the next 2 weeks. So wherein we can deliberate and brainstorm on various issues to see how we can take up these challenges, and also when we resume after COVID-19 lockdown, how we look at the priorities of the action points. So I take great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Shyam, who welcome Shyam. So
thank you.
At a short notice, he agreed to do this. So I welcome you to this Nagarathar Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I also welcome our own chamber member, Mr. V. Nagappan, who readily agreed to moderate the session. Welcome, Nagappan Annan.
Hello.
And I see members and non-members logged in from different parts. I see some people who have logged in from US, some people from Karur, some people from Trichy, and a couple of people have messaged me personally that they log in from Malaysia. So we see a lot of people from across the globe joining us this session. So with these, So with these few words, I welcome you all again for this first online session, and I now hand over the proceeding to Mr. Nagapanandan to take over.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening, friends.
Good evening.
Hope the audio is clear. You're able to hear all of us. Yeah. I'm not going to spend much of your time. I don't want to eat into Shyam's time, but let me introduce Shyam. When I asked him this morning how to introduce him, he said, very briefly, whatever you think, you can introduce me. It's a little tough job to introduce him because he's a multifaceted personality. So what I did was I went to Twitter, his Twitter handle. His Twitter, he is followed by 57,000 followers. You know, for someone from Tamil Nadu with investment background to be followed by 57,000 people is something big. So I'll read out from his Twitter handle. Shyam Sekhar is an entrepreneur, investment thinker, and organic farmer. The third part is how I know him. Passionate about public life, but too private to be there. Now, what I know about Shyam, he's got 3 decades of experience in investing and capital markets, and he has served as president of Tamil Nadu Investor Association, the oldest investor association in India, and a SEBI registered association, which celebrated its 25th year under his presidentship. And he is the promoter and chief ideator of ithought, a SEBI registered PMS, portfolio management services company. And he is a regular columnist in Economic Times, Mint, and Money Control online version. And he also he writes regularly in Tamil newspaper, Dinamalar. Every Monday, his column is very popular on investment. He appears on television channels very frequently, from English business channels to Tamil channels. And the other face of Shyam is also that, you know, he is involved in various social projects. He is a vice president of Madras Dyslexia Association, MDA. With this introduction, we can go into the session. The session is divided into, we'll have 3 sessions, each of 30 minutes. And first 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, Shyam will be speaking about the topic. And then 8 to 10 minutes, members can ask questions. And we have divided it into 3 sessions. The first session will be on business, the strategies, and in the current context, how do we go about it. The second session will be on the investments, and the third session will be on personal finance. So the first session in business, before Shyam starts, let me throw some light on it so that Shyam can take it forward from there. See, most of us are facing, going through a tough time right now. Being coming from a community which is, with a lot of entrepreneurship skill sets, scaling up and then downsizing is, suddenly downsizing is a problem, and supply chain vulnerability is there. Now, what are the challenges you expect for businessmen right now? And will when I spoke to a few people, I spoke to a bus owner and a ready-made, somebody who's running a ready-made garment. Hotels are closed, resorts are closed, and airline industry. I was talking to somebody, a farmer in Pollachi. He said that till Thursday, till Monday, he was not able to go and take the coconut because they never allowed him to do that. But now they have allowed him, because otherwise it falls and it goes as a waste. So now they're making some arrangement. If nothing happens, so what is the kind of the challenges you feel the business will face? You yourself, you're a venture capitalist, you have invested, you have a Shyam? Shyam?
Last sentence, I didn't hear you.
No, what are the challenges you expect will be facing in the short run and in the long term? And how do we cope with that?
Basically, this COVID is a black swan event. It is an event which has come out of the blue. It actually surfaced long back in December, January itself. We knew that COVID is there in China. But somehow, many of us are used to compartmentalizing our thinking. So we were thinking that it won't come to us. That it will not come, it will not affect our business, it will not affect our industry, our market. We had that kind of a silo mindset. But the last 2 months have completely changed. It has turned everything upside down, and all our expectations have been turned upside down. And COVID has virtually brought the world to a standstill. So we are seeing, probably for the first time in known economic history, all economic activity and production coming to a standstill. And when that happens, and it happens for a period of time, even as brief as 2 months, the kind of consequences that it will create on the world, and the kind of legacy that it will leave behind, these are things that we have not even thought about, and we have never been told how this will be. We have talked about so many scenarios, but we have never talked about the scenario where economic production stops and the world lives on for a month or two. Even it's just a brief period of 1 or 2 months, but we have not been tutored in that, or we have not really written that scenario out in our mind. So when that scenario suddenly presents itself, and one fine morning we are saying that, okay, lockdown, then we are suddenly now trying to reimagine what it will be when things start again. And I am very sure that it is not going to be the same as it was before the lockdown. There are different reasons for this, because if you look at industry, I think that industry globally has been running on lower resources than it requires always. So what has been happening is that industry has been supported by consumption, and it has been always supported by economic growth. It has always had the benefit of higher growth. When you have higher growth across economies, you are having better consumption, better demand, and therefore whatever you supply tends to get absorbed. So you are always seeing that demand is the driver of the economy. Now, post-COVID, I expect that for a brief period of time, demand will not come back immediately in many areas. One classic area is tourism and all the related businesses. You're not going to see demand come back in these areas immediately. It may take 3-4 months for people to get the courage to travel again, which means that huge amounts of capital which have been invested depending on the movement of people will actually not get commensurate returns. So like this, you are going to see a chain effect across industries, and that is going to really create a problem where supply is plenty and demand is not going to rise at the same speed to create some kind of a adequacy of utilization. So that is where we are moving, and this is going to happen across industries. Also, when you cut the chain of consumption in people, whether they will rush back to the same level of consumption immediately, that is another point that we don't know. Even let us say that we are used to more home food for a period of 21 days. Whether the week after, we are just going to abandon that and run and buy, whether you are going to order the same amount of food on Swiggy, whether you are going to use Uber to the same extent that you used prior to COVID, all these things are untested. So you are going to see at least a phase of readjustment. And importantly, in this 21 days, the financial capacity of a lot of people is getting impaired. And that is something which again will cause a reset in many industries. Like I have seen that in many industries, they have gone in for a wage cut instead of taking a cut in headcount. Instead of reducing the number of people, they have reduced the wage across the system. In some other industries where there is a lot of staffing and temping, they have let go of a lot of people who are temporary, who they are not obligated to retain. And you are also having a third category of industries where they have done a mix of both. They have let go of people and they have also reduced wages. And these are merely for survival. It does not mean that those businesses are going to be financially comfortable even after doing this. Now, this chain effect is bound to affect the psyche of the people who are working for these companies. Their consumption is going to be definitely lower post-COVID. Most importantly, we don't know how long this lockdown is going to be there. So we are going to see the confidence of people going lower and lower with every incremental week of lockdown. So if you are going to be locked down for the rest of April, that is going to have its effect. And if you are going to have a lockdown again into May, that is also going to have an impact. So basically, this event is a black swan event where all we had was a virus that can affect a small section of the population in terms of deaths, but a vast segment of population in terms of impact, and the entire population economically. So we are having different layers of effect, but the economic effect is actually the highest. Deaths are the lowest actually. So you are going to see a very, very unimagined scenario that has come into our lives in this year. And I would think that most of this year is going to be spent coming to terms with this event and coming out of this event. That is what I think is the situation. What are the challenges? The challenges are that loss of income is the first one. A lot of people are going to lose income, especially those who are in the industries which are facing the brunt of this COVID. Second, a lot of people are going to, who are working in the gig economy, those who are self-employed are going to see loss of income. You know, there is a very peculiar thing that I heard from the hospitals. I said, how are things that the COVID has come? You imagine that hospitals will be very busy. Actually, what has happened is those who go in for day surgeries, those who do all optional things, something that can wait, like, you know, some dental surgery, or somebody who's doing a plastic surgery, or somebody who's doing a surgery which they can do it at a particular time, like a cataract. There are so many things that people want to do. All these things are getting deferred, right? Once COVID goes, we don't know how many people will have the money and the financial wherewithal to go in for those surgeries. Now, they may further defer. So even in a place like a hospital, you are going to see the impact of this sustain, and it is not something that is going to go away. So loss of income is going to postpone a lot of economic activity. That is the first thing. Whether you are employed, self-employed, or you know, you are into some other services, you know, like lawyers, doctors. Everybody is going to be affected in a different scale, and the necessity of what they do is going to determine their ability to get financially back to normal. Suppose it is a discretionary activity that they are doing, it is probable that that activity will be affected more than other activities. So we are in a very, very peculiar situation where there is going to be an asymmetrical impact. COVID will hit different people in different ways, and COVID may go away in 8 or 10 weeks, but that impact is something that is going to stay for much longer than we imagine. So that is basically my understanding of COVID. With respect to business, let us talk about, I talked about how people are affected. Business is not exactly the same as people. Business has its own entity and identity. Business is something that is going to be affected in various ways. Firstly, we got into COVID at a point where business was already financially stretched. We all know, anybody who is in business knows that the working capital cycle, the speed at which you are turning money to cash and back to business sales, has been rather slow, probably the slowest in the last decade, just before we entered this crisis. So the challenge is that your monies may actually be outside. If you say that 100 rupees is the total money invested in the working capital of your business, on the one side that money may be borrowed, and where is the money? A lot of it is with customers and a part of it is in inventory. Now you need to collect this money with the customers if you have to again buy materials and do business at the same scale at which you did before COVID. That itself was a level of activity which was rather slower than it was 3-4 years back. So you are going financially into a crisis very ill prepared and in a state of weakness. So when you come out, probably the first thing that a business should do is bring back financial stability. So you cannot chase growth immediately. So on the one hand, you had this 21 days, you may have another 1 or 2 weeks, we don't know. On the other hand, you are going to spend some more time collecting your resources back. First step one business starts is to again gather your resources and restart your business. Now, what would you think? Generally, what people would think is, as soon as the crisis is over, you get back to normalcy. But your business will come back to the old level. But in my view, if your business swiftly jumps back to the old level, you may, in some cases, be putting yourself to risk for the simple reason, your customers may not be at the same old level of financial stability. They may not be as strong as they were in COVID. You will first have to assess who is where. So there is a certain uncertainty. So you will again have to make a fresh impact of the financial stability of every customer who has the ability to pay. And you will also have to receive payments from those whom you already done business with. So starting new business is a problem because you need to do that assessment. Even with the old customers, taking business back to old level is contingent on recovering old monies and then doing business again to the extent that you're comfortable with. So you will have to correct your financial situation once COVID is over, or once it is controlled, and then you need to look at cranking up your business. So we cannot simply do a deep dive once the lockdown is open. So there is going to be a lot of watchful response that you need to bring in after COVID. Now this is a traditional businessman, somebody who is from 1 or 2 generations before us, the pre-liberalization businessman will probably be able to say, yes, that's the right thing to do, so what? But those who are used to a faster pace of doing things, those who are more of the action-oriented businessmen, whom taking risks came very naturally, and they felt that that is the only way in which you should do business. I think that for them, this will be a paradigm shift. They would need to actually go back to thinking like good old days of maybe their parents or grandparents and take in some of those old principles and bring it into the business at this point in time. Do a very precise assessment of the risks of each customer. So unless you do that, you are going to put the money that you are having to greater risk post-COVID than you did pre-COVID. So you collect the money that you already put to risk pre-COVID and diligently put the money back in business. And if you're going to put it in the hands of customers, do it in a very, very measured and gradual way. Don't try to bring your business back to the old level, because there could be some people who are financially very weak. Okay, they may want to use your anxiety to bring your business back by quickly buying from you on credit more than they require, may be their way of capitalizing themselves. So you must be very, very careful that you give only to people who are actually capitalized to give you the money back. If you're going to give a lot of credit to somebody in your anxiety to bring your business back to the old level, that person may not return the money itself to you. So that is a risk that is very real across businesses, across trade, across services. So be very careful in the way you're going to bring your business back. I'm not saying don't become very risk averse and clam up, but follow a step function approach to bringing the business back to the old level. So which means that you should give yourself 6 to 12 weeks to gradually increase your business. So as you do that, the other person has to give the money for the old business. So you will also check his solvency, check his financial adequacy, and then do business. By doing so, you will also bring your business, pre-COVID business, into better health, and your post-COVID business will function seamlessly and smoothly for the future. So you have to do a lot of adjustments in the way you think, in the way you do your risk assessment of your customers or your vendors, and in the way in which you give credit, in the way in which you collect money, and in the way in which you run your whole financial ecosystem. Most people have in the last 5 to 7 years moved from the concept of having more capital in goods to having more capital in the customer's hands. I think there will be a shift, and there is a need for a gradual shift back to having more capital as inventory and turning that faster through customers. Now you may say, what will happen if the customer is not willing to pay? I think that we need to fashion our business correctly and keep it at the level where business will not fail. In the name of just doing more business, we cannot put the business to a risk where it can potentially fail. Because if that potential is there, I am afraid it will happen very fast. So you should be very, very diligent in the way in which you manage your capital post-COVID, and managing your capital, parallelly managing your customers and managing growth. It should be in that sequence. Whereas if you think pre-COVID, many of us may have been managing it in the reverse sequence, where you're managing growth, you're managing your customers, and the capital manages itself to the best extent possible. So you'll have to actually invert this whole concept post-COVID and then set the right pace for your business. This would mean that you're going to reduce your business for some time. And if you're going to reduce your business, then you need to reduce your costs, right? It has to happen. And I'm telling you, the most aggressive guys today, who are the most aggressive guys in business in the last 3-4 years? Many young people may be there. You will know that the venture capital guys were the most aggressive guys in business. They have been forced to reduce their costs. If a venture capital guy has got no hesitation in reducing his costs, a VC funded business is taking tough decisions. I don't see why entrepreneurial businesses run by many of you cannot take those decisions. So you should also be able to take those decisions. While taking those decisions, maintain certain broad principles of fairness. See, don't make your decisions appear unfair to your employees and other stakeholders. Try to make it a fair decision. If possible, take in the most important people involved in your business into confidence, explain the problem, and let a solution arrive. Don't try to push them towards what you want. Try to get a solution and try to find a middle ground, so that once the solution is found, everybody buys into the solution and fights for the organization's smooth recovery post-COVID. So you need to actually follow this approach. I have seen this happen in several VC funded companies. I've read a lot in the last 4-5 days where businesses under distress have done this. Clearly, there are not going to be increments post-COVID. You may actually have to reduce your cost also. And my suggestion would be, reduce your cost by 20-25% to the best extent possible, or even higher, and then see whether you can work properly. And do this before COVID goes out. Do it in the next 1 or 2 weeks. See what are the costs you can cut. Bring your business to a lower operating leverage, which means that if you are able to function with 30% less business also, your business should not make a loss and it should function smoothly. So you need to actually reduce your cost in that fashion and then go for growth. Very few businesses can really bounce back straight to the pre-COVID level. If you are having such a business, you are lucky. But most of us probably are not having that luxury, which means that we would need to take some tough decisions in these 2 weeks. So before the 1st of Chitrai, I think that you can use this phase of 2 weeks to think through and talk to your team members, colleagues, try to assess how much business is safe to do. And at that level of business, what cost your business can bear. And in keeping those in mind, try to reduce your costs. Now, as an entrepreneur, you might have invested a lot in equipment, you must have invested a lot in inventory, a lot in land and building, a lot in people, and a lot in assets outside your business also, right? You could have done many things. While doing this, there is a chance that the way in which you allocate money to each could, over a period of time, become imbalanced. Many people over the last several years have allocated less money to their business and more money to their lifestyle or to their investments outside their business. It could be a plot of land, it could be anything. It could be gold, it could be anything. By doing that, their business may have already been weakened because it is not having enough capital to run. Now, such people should evaluate their business carefully and quickly recapitalize the business, which means you must give your money to the business. So you may have to sacrifice some investments and you may have to stabilize the business. And then you should run the business carefully so that you don't lose the capital that you have put in the business. Many people think, oh, I will not give my business any money. I'll only use my vendor's money and my bank's money and I'll run and I'll only take the profit. I think that paradigm will not work in post-COVID. You must have your money skin in the game and you will have to put in a little more than you did before COVID. So that is something for which you need a paradigm shift. Your mindset should change. You must be ready to invest more of your money post-COVID. You may say, sir, I don't have ready money. You may have to dip into your reserves. You may have to dip into what you thought was not meant for the business. It could even mean maybe if, sacrificing some amount of other assets, maybe jewelry, maybe some deposits, maybe one surplus plot of land, which you always thought was just, you bought it for a hobby investment, something like that. I don't know where you'll get it from, but you need to put in your money. Borrowing more money from your friends and relatives and putting it in your business is probably not correct. You cannot create debt from outside and then treat it as equity inside your business. That is something that in this context is something that you must avoid. Many people found it very easy to borrow against property from companies, I don't want NBFCs, and then put that money as capital in the business. I think that I would rather sell the property because you are really putting your business to too much risk in this phase. So you need to basically consider all these factors and ensure that your business is well capitalized. When I say well capitalized, don't leave more money than is required in the business. Leave enough money that is required in the business. Bring in your employees and other stakeholders to work under certain ground rules which are fairly fixed for the post-COVID era. Try to keep on improving the financial optics of your business and ensure that you become more efficient over a period of 3 to 4 months post-COVID. That would mean sacrificing growth for that period, bringing order to your business, ensuring that capital efficiency improves in ensuring that your own money in the business is adequate and ensuring that you
organized, equitable, transparent, and stakeholder friendly. So these are some of my opening thoughts on how business will be, how you should bring your business back in the post-COVID era, and how COVID is an opportunity for people to refashion the way they approach their business and the way they grow it in the future. Nagarathar, I have stopped here.
Yeah. Shyam, this is, I have a different view on this. I just wanted to, throw it back to you. See, I was talking to a hotel owner who built, who was borrowed a few hundred crores and built a hotel in
You can
Bangalore.
increase your volume a little
And
bit. You can increase
yeah,
your
you're
volume.
able to hear now? Yeah? Is it all right?
Others won't be able to hear.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
now you speak.
see, yeah, I was talking to a couple of people. The negative side of it is that, like you rightly said, the resorts are closed, hotels are closed, and they're not able to make the payment. I was talking to a two-wheeler dealer in Hyderabad, and he was very concerned that how he's going to meet his commitment because he's got 300 vehicles unsold in his showroom, which he's not able to sell, and there is spares he has ordered for 60-65 lakhs. So there are a lot of issues going on, and that's one side. But simultaneously, don't you see an opportunity for India and India entrepreneurs in some of the news which is coming, like the problem for China? Could it be beneficial to India? Will businesses shift out of China, as we read in some newspapers? And the second is that with crude prices coming down drastically, it is almost all-time low. We are much closer to all-time low, and with 50%. Crude has never fallen by more than 50% in the last 20-25 years, as far as I remember. So crude has come down, which will lead us to substantial reduction in current account deficit, which is again helpful for government of India, and which will put less pressure on US dollar when the US dollar is going up. FIs are selling and taking money. So, and the third part is, first I said business is shifting out of China because of this problem. The second is the crude price, and the third one is the reducing interest rate scenario, which brings us the cost of production down. Will these three things, is it a right or ideal setting for going in for a diversification or expansion, which is what I was thinking, but then you have been cautioning. So what is your view on this three positive scenario, and how do we go about it?
However, what you're saying will exactly follow what I'm saying. Basically, what I'm saying is, so people should not just blindly go in for big capital decisions now. You collect your business. Suppose you are satisfied about the financial adequacy and you're seeing an opportunity, you will be ready to grow. Each business will be at a different state of readiness. Firstly, as far as China's the impact of China, I am of the view that the world is going to develop a deep aversion towards China, particularly the West is going to develop a very deep aversion to China because this disease has hit the core of Europe and New York, and Washington. It has hit places where the decision makers of those societies sit, and it has hit the financial nerve centers of these countries. So I would think that there is going to be a very high China aversion in the West. So that is possibly an opportunity for a country like India to take back a lot of opportunities which we lost over the last decade. We lost in several places, like textile, we have not gained market share. We have lost to Bangladesh, we have lost to China, we have lost to many people. So there are opportunities definitely in some of these areas for us to gain from what China is going to lose. So there is an opportunity. But I think that saying that everybody has an opportunity is not correct. Only those who are fully prepared have the opportunity. If somebody is not prepared to use that opportunity, then making big capital decisions without preparation can be dangerous. I just was trying to impress upon the need to prepare yourself, prepare your business, and prepare your stakeholders for growth. Once you do that, you go for growth. With respect to the other 2 points you mentioned, as far as oil is concerned, I am of the view that the government has to bite the bullet and pass on the oil price decrease to the consumer. Government has so far tried to protect its macro. So it has basically ensured that the current account deficit and all that is comfortable. Government will be reasonably comfortable from the point of view of oil. But it is no use having state and central governments comfortable if that comfort is not going to translate into retail industrial competitiveness. So you will actually have to reduce the cost at the industry or the service level. I think till now nothing has happened. They have reduced probably 1 or 2 rupees in fuel price, which is whereas in other countries it could be higher. So your competing country will have a lower fuel cost. So we need to refashion the economic thinking by accommodating the need of the industry also. It is no use just accommodating government and center and state. So there is a big gap there which needs to be filled, and I don't know how these the policy makers are going to come back on that. Now let me give you an example of what happened in 2000. You mentioned about interest rates, so let me go back straight to 2008 October. 2008, you had the financial crisis, global financial crisis. You had GFC. Now, what happened was between 2008 October and January 2009, India cut interest rates by 3.5%. Of course, today the interest rate is lower than what it was at 2008 starting point. One more thing the Indian government did at that time is they reduced the excise duty from 14% to 8%. By doing that, you put 6% of competitiveness in the hands of this, and you cut interest rates. So, and they increase the liquidity also. So today, let us compare the current scenario. In the current scenario, the government has reduced the CRR to the lowest in history. RBI's history is seeing its lowest CRR, which means the government is putting more cash in the system. Interest rate, again, at their lowest in a decade or more. And I think that this 75 pips may not be enough. You need to reduce it further in order to put confidence. Now, taxes, whether government will reduce, I don't know, but going by history, the state, now today the states also have to agree. Then excise was in the hands of the finance minister. He could reduce it in one day. But today, if you have to move the GST of a single item, the state finance ministers who form the GST council have to all agree. So we are not in that place where we can easily build consensus on tax reduction. So that is out of the window. So the center has to again come to some conclusion about fuel prices. Even there, they have to consult the state ministers, because the state will complain, I have lost revenue because I reduced the fuel prices. Now you compensate me. And if the center has to compensate that, then the center's deficit will go for a toss. So there is a macroeconomic challenge which the current way of working has put on us. But I do agree in to great detail that we are having history's big opportunity to take some business away from China and to create competitiveness across industry. This is an opportunity for us. But whether we are ready now is a moot question. And if you are not ready now, how we are going to come to a state of readiness in this calendar year is something that we need to watch out.
In fact, that was a question from one of our members, Chinnaya, the chartered accountant from Madurai. Now we have another question from Mr. Ramanathan Muttaya from Trichy. He's asking, do you think the consumers will come back with vengeance and go on a spending spree post-COVID, having denied for some time? And I just want to add this with another question from Somasundaram. He wants to know which sector will bounce back faster post-COVID.
I think that while the consumers may want to spend and feel very good, we don't know how many people are going to be financially impacted in COVID. How many people's income is going to contract? How many people are going to have loss of income? So if you are going to have widespread job loss or loss of income, or very big contraction in the gig economy, because the gig economy is actually driving consumption. We don't realize the boys who are delivering food to us have all kept the auto industry going. The boys who are running our Uber and Ola and Dunzos, they are the guys who have actually kept the auto industry going, not people like us. Because we are not really the guys who are changing our vehicle every 2-3 years, whereas they have been spending a lot. Now, if the demand for those services does not rebound to the old level, or if their confidence is dented, then they are going to defer purchases, and a lot of things can happen. So we need to have a psychological booster dose from government to ensure that the consumption comes back. Otherwise, I think that the consumption will not so easily come back to pre-COVID levels. I think it will take some time, because the damage which this is going to inflict is something which we have not thought about. I think that we will realize it once the COVID lockdown ends. And after a week or 2 or 3, you will see, when you go to a bazaar, whether you're in Madurai or Trichy, or you're going to a supermarket, you're going to Big Bazaar, or you're going into any other mall, you will see the change. I think that people will think 10 times before they spend. because they will be worried, because you look at it this way, 2 months loss of income, and then you have to pay the school fees. Government cannot tell the schools you collect the fees in July, like they are telling the banks. So you have many things that are going to hit us, and people are not ready. People are clearly not ready. And also the sectors which usually keep the economy buoyant, like tourism, will come to a standstill, and they won't really bounce back. Your tourists are not going to come next week after COVID. They are going to come after 3 months or 6 months. We don't know. And in that period, the people who are dependent on those industries will become financially weaker, because if your activity comes to a standstill, even for you to run your normal life, you won't have income. We have not thought about that for a lot of people. Many of us, God willing, are not in that position. So we need to actually put ourselves in the shoes of the gig economy, the tourism, and where they have the flexi work, and where the income has actually come to a standstill, and which are not going to come back to normalcy. So consumption, in my view, will not come bouncing back the way people are foreseeing it. It will come back, but it will be it will take its time to level and then rise. At every level,
But which is the first sector you think?
water.
Which is the sector which will bounce back first, or move up first? Do you have a pick on it? Hello.
Sectors that will bounce back first. I'm just thinking. So I think that wherever you are selling staples will bounce back first. Wherever you are selling staples, essentials will bounce back first. Now, fuel will bounce back first. I think consumption of fuels will bounce back first, and in my opinion, the power sector will bounce back first. It's a contra idea, but I think the first guys who will come back from this will be the those who produce power.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next session, one question from Nagu Chidambaram. What does it mean to be prepared to grab the opportunities when they rise? What kind of, when you say to be prepared, what kind of preparation is needed? Is it capital or manpower, or how do we, what do you mean?
First, you put your product or service before more newer people now. Make them do the evaluation. Create some innovation in your product or service which people will like. Place it before them and make them think about it while there is a shutdown. One. Or reach them the product or service within days of the shutdown lifting off. Basically, refashion your business. Get things which society will want from you, either a product or service, and look for better customers. Create, because this is a crisis, but you will have to turn the crisis into opportunity. Then ensure that your capacities are all working properly. Let us say they lift off saying that factories will be the first ones to start working. Malls won't work. And if you're running a factory, ensure that all your equipment immediately are brought to, when the demand is low, complete your maintenance and bring all your equipment to perfect one-day working condition. And if you are having some machines which are not used, also bring them to readiness. Tell people that we can do all these things. So you show yourself to be better prepared when you come out of COVID. That is what I would suggest. So your preparation in the eyes of the world should look superior. That is one point. Second, keep enough money to do business when you get it from the right customers. So if you have inadequate money and a good customer comes to you, you will not be able to buy the raw material or provide the product or service. So there will be a certain delay. I think that the guys who choose the right products and are ready and they have the right customers and their conversations come to quick closure after COVID, they will be able to service the need faster. And the guys who service the need faster will grow first out of COVID. So that is what I meant by preparation. Prepare in many ways, as many ways as you think it is required to your business, to be the first one off the block and the most prepared in your domain.
Okay. Now we will move on to the next session, the investment part. And now, there are a lot of investors in this group. And you have stocks, you have mutual funds, real estate, gold. I know you've been tracking gold for for quite a long time, and forex as an asset class is also there. So, does asset allocation has really worked? Does it really help? And which option is best post-COVID going forward? Because if you look at the stock markets, it has fallen. Nifty has fallen down from 12,000 plus to close to 8,000, which is about 33%, or one third of the index has gone. It looks very attractive for a common man. An investor who has not invested so far or invested already at 12,000, it looks very attractive at this point of time, whether he has got money or not. But is it recency bias? Many of us are, recency bias could be there. You look at 12,000, so you feel 8,000 is cheaper. But when you compare this with 2008 fall, in 2008, Indian economy was doing well. Indian economy was still growing. But the problem was in US, because of which the Indian markets fell down by 66%. Sensex came down from 21,000 plus to 7,900. So that was a fall. We are nowhere closer to that fall right now. If I extrapolate the same thing, I don't want to scare anyone, but the Nifty could, simply by a mathematical calculation, the Nifty can come down from 8,000 to even 4,000. I don't know. I'm not saying that it will come, but if you extrapolate what was there, of course, there are some, positive news like EPS has gone up. EPS in 2008 is different, and EPS for the index is right now is different. So the question in everyone's mind is, which is a better asset class which will perform going forward when the economy itself is like this, when production is slowing down, and to continue the SIP or not, for the mutual fund investors, or to top up using the opportunity. Is it an opportunity to top up, or is it a time to withdraw? These are all questions in their mind. And I have something about bank fixed deposits. One of our members has asked. I'll come back to that later. So your views on this?